We're currently studying engaged Buddhism. What is it? I have to click all these little things on here. Try not to mess it up. I had a conversation yesterday. A really wonderful practitioner from a Tibetan group in Sacramento said, "You've been doing work with diversity and equity and inclusion and what's now accessibility and what's now sometimes belonging is added onto it." She said, "You've been doing it for a long time. Can I talk to you and maybe you can help us figure it out?" And my first thought was, I have no idea what to do. She said her Lama said the same thing. I thought, well, okay. And it's an ongoing question and a call on, is what is this and how do we do it? And what does the Sangha do and how do we respond? I don't know. And I did say to her that for the last 10 years, I've been co-leading a racial and social justice as Dharma practice group. And I will just do that forever. I will just do that forever. And it's a smaller group, and it's people all over the country. And it just feels important to say this is important. This is an important marker in our practice life. And Buddhism in America and Buddhism across traditions. And anyway, the young woman and I had a great conversation. We just talked. It's so much fun to talk to somebody who has the same questions and the same passion. So I'm going to bring some of that here today. We're going to continue. On Tuesday, I did some unfolding from Rhonda Magee, who is a really amazing African-American practitioner, both Vipassana and Zen tradition. And the book that she has, although she does so much work in the world now, there's so much you could find. The Inner Work of Racial Justice, Healing Ourselves and Transforming Our Communities Through Mindfulness. I thought I'd begin, though. I was watching PBS last night. They do really good stuff. NPR. And they had news of this new study. A pair of new studies from the Journal of the American Medical Association find that the toll of racial disparities in health for Black Americans is even starker than we knew. That's true both in life's lost and in enormous economic cost as well. From 1999 to 2020, Black Americans experienced 1.63 million excess deaths compared to white Americans. This resulted in 80 million years of life lost. It's really important to just say this and hear this, not to bludgeon ourselves, but to just COVID widened that gap in deaths even further, and the loss was felt especially among infants and older adults. In terms of economic cost, the study found that in 2018, racial health inequities cost the U.S. an estimated $421 billion. You know, it's just stupid what we're doing. Sorry. Around 2/3 of that cost came from premature deaths. It just goes on and on. And I wish I'd printed out a little bit more of the interview, but it was with, I think, one of the person who leads the diversity and equity at Johns Hopkins, or one of the big universities. And they said, what do you feel when you hear this? And I think she said, It's startling, it's not a surprise, and something about how this current 100 years, the statistics haven't changed from the past 100 years. Mm-hmm. It's like we haven't made any progress. Yeah. What is going on here? You know? So, to Rhonda Magee. I love Rhonda Magee. She's so upright in the midst of all of this. I wanted to start a couple of quotes. One by Audre Lorde. Refusing to recognize differences makes it impossible to see the different problems and pitfalls facing us. And true, unless one lives and loves in the trenches, it is difficult to remember that the war against dehumanization is ceaseless. So I wouldn't call it a war, but I'd say living in the mud. That's what we do, we human beings. We're waking up in the mud with and for all beings and noticing differences in the foreground, background of complete interconnection. You are me and I am you. Giving and kind speech and beneficial action and radical interconnectedness. And James Baldwin says, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. Okay. And Thich Nhat Hanh. There are people, no matter what ethnic group they belong to, whose way of thinking is full of understanding and humanity, whose way of speaking is full of hope and confidence, and whose way of acting is full of compassion. People can see the nobility in them. That's being a Buddha. That's waking up and enacting and being, embodying the Buddha in each one of us and bringing it forward in the world. It's noble. I mean, not in some special way, but just, it's like when I sit in Zazen posture, it feels noble to me. Not extra, just upright, present, dignity, wide open, caring, clear. And then, of course, then it's like, well, but it's always right here. You don't have to go very far. It's very noble, and we affect each other. So I'm going to read you some of Rhonda Magee, and then there's a little exercise she has in here. It's chapter 6, Looking at the Reality of Racism, Contemplating Race and Racism. Mindfulness is a form of contemplative practice, a form of contemplation. But what is contemplation? How would you define it? One definition of contemplation that I learned many years ago at a Jesuit university where I teach is simply this: a long, loving look at the real. If we are to end racism and its suffering, or even do effective work toward that end, we need to really see what we are up against, to contemplate it. Contemplate it. It's a really deep religious practice. This isn't some worldly other thing. This is what bodhisattvas do. We need to take a long, lifelong, loving, heartfelt, and compassionate look at the reality of racism and its underpinning, justifying idea, which is race. The tendency to categorize and rank human beings based on real and perceived differences is pervasive across social groups and societies. We do it. This is what we do. Sociologists tell us that a countervailing tendency is also pervasive. The impulse to minimize differences and seek equality and fair treatment across our common humanity. to minimize differences. When I came to Zen Center, we were told there was no difference between the practice. Well, I mean, there was nobody of color there, so I mean, hardly. So it wasn't even like an issue. But men and women, that arose in the 70s as an issue, and we were pretty much told there was no difference. And we all just went, okay. Yeah, well, okay. There is no difference, and there's a difference. How do we do this? These two tendencies, to minimize differences and to rank and categorize, compete for dominance in any given place and time. The tendencies to rank and order humanity reached a pernicious extreme in the Holocaust during the 1940s. I mean, we know that one, but we don't know it, but don't turn away. And as a response, the Holocaust gave rise to the highest expression of a countervailing view of common humanity through the establishment of the United Nations and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights adopted by that body in 1948. In reality, each of us actually influences the direction of that our society takes, whether that it be in favor of more hierarchy and domination, or of egalitarianism and human dignity-based justice for all. Because remaining neutral or keeping silent favors the status quo, we must come to see that as we live, choose, and act, we are actually engaging in projects either of equality or oppression, always. We're choosing moment to moment through our lives. The notion of race is one of the most devastatingly effective constructs that we have created, used, and maintained to separate groups and build a sense of natural, quote, hierarchy in our societies. Over the course of Western history, since the period that gave rise to the transatlantic slave trade, race has served as an ever-ready channel for fear and threat, for justifying privileging against some over others, for making some vulnerable for the benefit of the privileged. And we can see, I think Rhonda probably wrote this book 6 years ago, and there's just an escalation of it. I mean, we're just in a time where it's probably going to get worse unfortunately, during the political debates. Okay, I'm going to read just a little bit more here. We attach notions of race in ad hoc, culturally and regionally defined ways to places as well as bodies. In our minds, neighborhoods, states, and even continents are often implicitly or explicitly racially identified, and we perform and act in ways that reveal our investment in maintaining these notions of race and racial differences. We just do. You know, if you think you don't, look deeper. We all are. This isn't to make us guilty. It's to wake up. Racial identities, like other social identities, have been created in various cultures from the numerous ways that we categorize and group subsets of people within our populations. When we say that race is a social construct, we mean that race, like gender, because that's a big issue these days too, that's being played to divide people, is created and recreated day to day through social habits, trainings, and conditionings that range from personal performance to institutional policies and are most often so subtle as to evade our conscious awareness. Last paragraph. Not one of us can escape from engaging in ongoing, often subtle practices of racialization or race-making. The personal, interpersonal, and ultimately systemic processes by which races and their social implications are made and remade daily. Made and remade daily. Monthly, yearly, in each generation. They are made and remade daily, monthly, yearly, in each generation through subtle and often unintentional social practices of racialization, we give political, legal, and social meaning and value to racial identities. Pay attention. Pay attention. It's uncomfortable to pay attention. Okay, so here's a little, she gives wonderful little exercises through the whole thing that really ground it in practice and kindness and compassion. Because Rhonda Magee, I invited her to Everyday Zen once when I was doing some of this here. And I have such a strong memory of, I was sitting sort of in the teacher's seat like this. It's all a bunch of white people. And I just remember how she walked in the room. She just didn't have any edge or any defensiveness or any othering. And she put her hand out and I put my hand out and we just met. She's just a real human being that is committed. More than, she amazes me, the energy that she has to just, this is what she's going to do forever, is just help us all wake up. Okay. This exercise is called Awareness of the Embodied Self. Ooh, could tell it got my attention right away. Loving kindness for the you the world sees. It's like, how do you bring this home? Take a breath, settle in. And bring your attention to your body in this moment. Gently focus on your experience of this very moment. Get granular. Notice the subtle sensations of breathing in and out, including the points of contact between your body and the ground beneath you. And rest in the strength of these grounding sensations. Now, call to mind one aspect of your outward identity that other people notice by sight or sound alone when they encounter you. Your outward identity. This might be your gender, your age, or what you may think of as your ethnicity. Aspects of language and culture that are part of how you identify yourself in the world. As best you can, settle your attention on this aspect of your social identity. This way that you have been met according to the largely unspoken social and cultural rules of your time. Home in on this aspect of who you appear to be, which a person might notice or surmise without having had a conversation with you. Consider the impact of this in contexts in which you are known by others. And now consider the impact of this in contexts where you are not known. How this affects how you are received, what opportunities may be available to you, whether you are given the benefit of the doubt when those in power exercise discretion. Note any thoughts, emotions, or sensations that are arising right now. Look for any signs of denial or resistance. These may feel like sensations such as warmth, fuzziness, lightheadedness, even sleepiness. You might be feeling bored or suddenly restless. See if you can slow down your processing. Notice the thoughts behind these sensations. Now, practice letting your thoughts, judgments, and stories go. Imagine each as a cloud floating across a blue sky and return to the sensations of body and breath. Drop into the sensations of your body in this moment. Feel your connection with the ground beneath you. Breathe in and out, lengthening the out-breath as desired to assist in enhancing the sense of calm peacefulness within you. And allow your breathing to return to an easy, effortless rhythm. And now, from this place of non-judgmental awareness, gently and with as much will to alleviate any suffering that arises in you as possible, self-compassion, turn towards the particular sensation of reactivity you notice in this moment. Turn towards any particular sensations of reactivity you notice in this moment. What does this feel like in your body? What were you taught to believe about bodies like yours? About differently racialized, gendered bodies, racialized or gendered bodies. How might this aspect of your social identity have shaped your experience in the world? Have you spent more time in places where you were a significant minority or majority based on your race or gender? Are there ways that this identity has been a source of comfort to you, a source of advantage to you? Are there ways that this identity has been a source of discomfort to you and a source of disadvantage to you? Reflect now for a few moments, again, with as much kindness as possible. Notice the sensations, emotions, thoughts, and reactions that arise within you, especially any tendency to move away from what you know. And as you bring this meditation to a close, offer appreciation, love, and kindness to the part of you that brought you to this willingness to know and to grow. Justice begins with our daily practice of coming home to our senses in the present moment. Bringing love to our work with others to change harmful systems and perceptions, and pushing the refresh button again and again. From a place of awareness, justice looks like compassionate action to reconnect what has been artificially separated and to maintain those connections throughout our days. Rather than engage in adversarial arguments that focus on shaming and punishing, we look to ways of seeking accountability while maintaining a sense of ourselves as part of an integrated whole. We seek, in other words, a deep and revolutionary mindfulness with a capacity to awaken us to our role in the suffering of others and our own, and to support us in enacting transformative justice again and again wherever we are. We practice a mindfulness strong enough to resist the siren song of the world's confusions, separations, over-attachment to outcomes, and ability to live comfortably off the excesses afforded by the systemic suffering of others. Rhonda Magee has something she calls humanity consciousness. Humanity consciousness. We see interconnectedness. We feel the suffering of others. We discern what action might help alleviate the suffering and the harm. And we take action and reflect on its impact. For me, she says, the love that kindles the fire for justice in this very life is also for those who feel so disconnected from their fellow human beings that racism finds a home in their hearts and minds. I have suffered long enough. You have suffered long enough. We have all suffered long enough. May we bring ourselves into continual conversation with one another and with the racial and gender injustices here and now, ending the suffering and making things right, one moment, one risk, one luminous reconnection at a time. She's a bodhisattva. So are we. Waking up and waking up. So when we do service in a little bit, we're going to do a chant for all beings by Zenju Earthling Manuel, which is she took the Loving Kindness Sutra and changed it to. Because I want you to talk. I'm going to give you time to talk. I promise. But let me just chant Zenju's chant. And you all have one on your chairs, and then we'll do it as part of service too. Oh. Chant for all beings. May all beings be cared for and loved. Be listened to, understood, and acknowledged despite different views. Be accepted for who they are in this moment. Be afforded patience. Be allowed to live without fear of having their lives taken away or their bodies violated. May all beings be well in the broadest sense. Be fed, be clothed, be treated as if their life is precious. Be held in the eyes of each other as family. May all beings be appreciated. Feel welcomed anywhere on the planet. Be freed from acts of hatred and desperation, including war, poverty, slavery, and street crimes. Live on the planet housed and protected from harm. Be given what is needed to live fully, without scarcity. Enjoy life, living without fear of one another. Be able to speak freely in a voice and mind of undeniable love. May all beings receive and share the gifts of life. Be given time to rest, be still, and experience silence. May all beings be awake. So you're going to have, I don't know, maybe about 15 minutes